It is 7 o'clock, April 11th, 2019. I'd like to call the meeting to order. I'd like to begin with the pledge to the flag. I pledge
I pledge
allegiance
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think we have one addition to what we have here, and that is a resolution on 5G cell towers. Can I have a motion to accept the agenda? Pardon? As amended. Made by John Merwin, seconded by Chris Kennan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we have any public comment on agenda items only? Yes, Bill.
Well, actually, I think I'll reserve it for the public hearing, so I think that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay.
I just have a question
Yes.
about the ethics committee.
Yes.
I'm curious how, when they meet, how they meet, and if they've met like in the last year, just to get an idea of whether this group is.
They meet based on need. To be honest with you, the last couple of years, there has been no need. However, they do meet, they have met, every year they have an annual meeting. Yes.
If somebody wants to, how is a meeting called if an ethics issue comes up?
If an
Everybody-
Then it would probably, the most likely scenario is that I would refer it to the ethics committee if we have an issue.
And then is that confidential?
Depending on what the ethics issue is, if it's something that hasn't been in the public realm, then in all likelihood, it would be confidential.
So anyone in the community can say, oh, I have an issue, then I want to present it to the ethics committee, and that would happen. That's how-
Well, it would depend on what it is. I mean, the
They would
ethics,
decide.
pardon me?
They would decide, though.
It would depend who it involves, what it involves, whether it, applies to, town personnel or what. Because it's, the ethics committee is not in relationship to just anybody in the town.
Right, no,
Yeah.
so what are they then? What issues are they concerned with?
Conflicts of interest,
In where? Which-
any, type of relationship, should you be ruling on something here and someone doesn't claim that they have an interest within that at the time, that could be a possible ethics issue.
Okay, so it has to do with town government.
Yes,
It's all about town government.
that's what the ethics committee is. It relates strictly to town government.
Okay.
Two other ethics law.
Pardon me?
Two of the ethics law we passed as
Yeah.
a local law.
Yeah,
We
there
passed
is,
an ethics law more than several years ago. If you'd like to come in and look at the ethics law, I can give you a copy.
So they haven't met in the last year, but they meet once a year.
if there's no other issue going on, they are required to meet once a year. We don't have our police representative here, so Bob, you're up.
Everything is going well with the highway department. We are busy sweeping, patching, and taking down dead trees. Everything's going well.
That was easy.
Yeah. Thank you.
Let's see, we have on the table, report from the planning board, their monthly report. There is no report from the assessor. Town clerk, have
just my monthly report is that we collected $370.83 related to conservation licenses, dog licensing, and marriage licenses last month for the month of March. And on tax collection in the month of March, we collected $96,094.77.
I failed to mention that the report from the dog catcher is in the what we have on the table here. Committee activity, I'm going to ask Edie to give a very brief explanation of what's going on with the comp plan.
Well, we released it for public comment on April 3rd. We've organized a meeting at the Annex on Saturday, April 27th, an informational meeting. Nan Stolzenberg will come and make a 20-minute presentation, and then the committee will open the floor to questions and comments. And then we have also scheduled a public hearing, which will be properly advertised, for May 18th, again a Saturday, 2 o'clock at the Annex. And after that, we will convene, evaluate all the comments that we've collected, and then present our end product to you and to the village trustees.
Very good, thank you very much. I'm going to jump around here a little bit. We have, this will apply to Bob, we have a resolution to approve a purchase of and bonding for the backhoe, for a new backhoe. Several years ago, I asked Bob to come up with a rotation on our equipment so that we didn't have a situation in which we had 3 or 4 pieces of equipment occurring at the same time. We have kept to that as close as we can. We hope to keep to it in the future. This year we're looking at the backhoe. This also helps us in our budgeting so that we have 1 piece of equipment each year, and when we go out for bond, normally there will be another piece that's coming off. So you have here a resolution for that piece of equipment. And Lisa, you want to do the honors?
It's a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of a statutory installment bond of the town of Northeast, Dutchess County, New York, to pay the cost of acquisition of highway equipment for said town, to wit, it's a 2019 Caterpillar Inc. model 420F2 ST backhoe loader. Whereas this board desires to authorize a statutory installment bond for the financing of the purchase of a 2019 Caterpillar Inc. 420F2 ST backhoe loader. Whereas this board by resolution authorized the purchase of this equipment per the Sourcewell contract number 032515. Now therefore be it resolved by the town board of the town of Northeast, Dutchess County, New York as follows. The maximum estimated cost of the equipment, including incidental expenses to be incurred in connection therewith, is $99,790. The plan for the financing of the purchase is as follows. By the issuance of a general obligation statutory installment bond of the town of Northeast, hereby authorized to be installed pursuant to the local finance law in the maximum amount of $80,000, and by the expenditure of $19,790 from the 2019 Highway Fund. The statutory installment bond will be dated on a date to be determined by the town supervisor and will be mature no more than 4 years following the date of execution of the bond, with prepayment received, and will bear interest in the name of the town of Northeast by the town supervisor and by the town clerk, and will be sealed with the corporate seal of the town of Northeast. It is hereby determined that the period of probable usefulness of the aforesaid object or purpose is 15 years pursuant to section 11 of the local finance law. It is further determined that the maximum maturity of the bond herein authorized will not exceed 4 years. The faith and credit of said town of Northeast are hereby irrevocable pledged to the payment of the principal of and interest on such board and the same respectively become due and payable. An annual appropriation shall be made in each year sufficient to pay the principal of and interest on such bond becoming due and payable in such year. There shall annually be levied of all the taxable real property in said town of a tax sufficient to pay the principal of and interest on such bond as the same become due and payable. Subjects to the provisions of the local finance law, the power to authorize the issuance of and to sell bond anticipation. Notes, in anticipation of the issuance and sale of the statutory installment bond herein authorized, including renewals of such note, is hereby delegated to the town supervisor, the CFO. Such note shall be of such terms, form, and content, and shall be sold in such manner as may be prescribed by supervisor, consistent with the provisions of the local finance law. Powers and duties of advertising such bond of sale, conducting the sale, and warning the bond are hereby delegated to the town supervisor, who shall advertise such bond for sale, conduct the sale, award bond in such manner as shall be deemed best for the interest of the town. Provided, however, that the exercise of the delegated powers, he shall comply fully with local finance law, and any order or rule of the state comptroller applicable to the sale of municipal bonds. The receipt of the town supervisor shall be a full acquittance to the purchaser, who shall not be obliged to see to the application of the purchase money. The town supervisor shall be authorized to execute any and all documents and to perform any and all steps necessary to obtain financing incident to this purchase. This resolution shall constitute a statement of official intent for purposes of Treasury Regulations Section 1.150-2, other than as specified in this resolution, no monies or are reasonably expected to be reserved, allocated, or on a long-term basis or otherwise set aside with respect to the permanent funding of the object. The validity of such bond and bond anticipation note may be contested only if such bond is authorized for an object or purpose for which the town is not authorized to expend money. 2, the provisions of law which would be complied with at the date of publication of this resolution are not substantially complied with, and an action, suit, or proceeding contesting such validity is commenced within 20 days after the date of publication. And/or 3, such bond is authorized in violation of the provisions of the Constitution. This action is a type 2 action pursuant to Part 617 of the Rules and Regulations of the State Environmental Quality Review Act. This resolution shall take effect immediately pursuant to Section 35, Section 5 and 2, and shall be published in full in the official newspaper together with a notice of the town clerk in substantially the form provided in Section 81 of the local finance law. And then I just need a vote for that, or any discussion, you guys.
Is there any discussion on this? Everyone in concurrence here? Okay.
Have to do a roll call.
We will, yep. Aye.
Do you need a motion? You need a motion?
I guess that's a good idea, isn't it? Can I have a motion to purchase this piece of equipment here? Made by Ralph Fidelli, second by John Merwin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then you need to do roll call. George?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Ralph?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
And John?
One more piece of business before we get to some other things. We have our representative from the local police here. What, please?
Guys. I don't know if I have copies for everyone here, but I'll take one and pass them down.
Okay.
Some
The
there.
services, thank you.
Oh, I think there's plenty there. Yeah.
What you have in front of you, the one with color, with yellow on it, that is the 2019 incidents. The village calls, we handled 34. Out of those 34, there was 2 arrests, and with the town, there was 10, and there was 2 arrests in the town. That's for 2019. The second one you have is the 2018, the same month of March. And I believe in the second page, there was a total of 44 calls, 28 in the village and 16 in the town.
What's a non-custodial list?
Meaning, most of the time we see those aggravated unlicensed operation. So if someone's driving down the road, they're suspended, it's technically a misdemeanor, so that's considered an arrest, but we don't actually take them, bring them back to the station and, go through the whole process. No fingerprints.
Anybody else have any questions, comments?
No.
Thank you.
Lastly, I have one more thing. This is Tyler Conley. He's our newest officer here in Millerton. He just graduated the police academy on Saturday. So he'll be doing 160 hours of mandated field training with us, and then he'll be on the road. So just wanted to introduce him to you guys.
Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you, appreciate it. All right, thanks guys.
Very good.
Have a good night.
Thank you, Mike. It is 7:16. Time to open the public meeting on the Monroe balancing test to determine if and to what extent the town of Northeast shall be exempted from the zoning and land use regulations of the town of Northeast Planning Board for the new town highway garage facility. Warren, do you have?
Yeah, Ray, would you ready to?
Yeah, provide a brief presentation.
Yeah, if we could, we need to,
Motion to open the public hearing?
Can I have a motion to open the public hearing? Made by Chris Kennan, seconded by John Merwin. All in favor?
Aye.
so the site for this facility, the highway garage facility, for the 3.7 acre parcel that the town now owns on Route 22, is in the A5A district, which is not zoned for a highway garage. As a matter of fact, I couldn't find another zoning district for which a highway garage is permitted. Okay, I could.
I agree.
That's something the planning board, when they do their comprehensive plan review, might want to look at. It used to be the standard for determining whether a municipality is going to be subject to its own zoning laws was based on what we call the governmental propriety test. If the government, it was a governmental function, then the town would consider itself excluded and exempt from its own zoning regulations. Now with the Court of Appeals case in 1988, the County of Monroe versus City of Rochester, they have done away with that prior determination that all governmental uses are exempt from their own zoning regulations, and preferred now that the municipalities apply what's known as the Monroe balancing test, in which it balances 9 factors in determining whether the proposed usage by the municipality should be subject to its own zoning laws. Historically, the way this balancing test has been applied, and where it gets much more controversial than a case like this, we would, if another municipality or another governmental agency wanted to establish something within the town of Northeast, which was not subject to our zoning law, then there would be a debate between the two governmental agencies to determine, one, who should hold the Monroe balancing test, and 2, whether the host community, which would be in this case, Northeast, would require that governmental unit be subject to the town zoning law. In this case, we do have to apply the test, even though it's it's our own zoning law and it's our own governmental function. So the way we like to do these things is to give the public an opportunity to understand what the project is and hold it open for a public hearing so the public can weigh in on the issue. And at the same time, if there are any environmental impact issues which members of the public can identify with this project, they can speak to that too, because we have to do two determinations. One, we apply the Monroe balancing test and reach a determination as to whether the town is going to have to, well, first, whether we can even site this facility in this location on the A5A district, or two, whether we want to subject the siting and approval of this facility to the special use permit process, which was normally applied to other uses. We also have to make a determination as to whether this project will have the potential for significant environmental impacts, which would require the preparation of a draft environmental impact statement. So we thought we would have the dual purpose tonight to hear the public on these issues plus any environmental issues. I think the first step would be for Ray to describe the project to the public so that we have a full understanding of what the town is proposing to do on this site.
Thank you, Warren. Good evening, everyone. Ray Trukowski of CPL, the engineer for the town working on the project. So the existing parcel is 3.7 acres in size, located along the westerly side of Route 22. Town had purchased this parcel specifically for the purposes of looking into a new highway facility. Since the current facility is undersized, there are issues with the existing building, and the town has been looking for a new location for quite some time. The proposed project as a whole is to construct 3 buildings on the existing site to encompass a joint facility between the town as well as the village moving forward. So that would be inclusive of storage building utilized by both entities, highway/DPW facility utilized by both entities, as well as a sand salt storage facility as well. As far as physical nature of the property, again, it sits along Route 22, located on the westerly side. There's approximately, there's a gentle slope from the, upward from the roadside to the rear property. There's approximately a 30-foot grade difference between the front to the back where it climbs. The the southerly border of the property is along an existing intermittent stream, the Sawmill Brook. That Sawmill Brook currently, we did clarify and verify with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, that's a Class C stream. Since it's only intermittent and it does dry up during the season, summer seasons, it is not a trout spawning stream or anything of that nature. Therefore, one of the things that we are looking at is over time, the brook has eroded soils and actually has encroached upon the property. One of the items within the project is actually to relocate that stream to its original stream bed location. We've discussed that with DEC, confirmed that we do not need to have a stream disturbance permit since it is not a trout stream, but we do need to meet their water quality standards. So a permit application will be submitted to both DEC as well as the Army Corps for review and comment prior to any work being done on the stream itself. In addition to that, there'll be a new access off of Route 22. Our office has met with New York State DOT as far as their permitting engineer. We have received preliminary comments regarding that entryway. It will be a fully curbed commercial entryway, paved apron as well. And again, similarly, a full application will need to be submitted to the New York State DOT for approval of that access. They have provided us with the location and have confirmed that the location is acceptable as far as the property, and we'll just need to go through that permitting process with them. The project will be broken up into 3 phases as far as its ultimate construction. First phase of the construction will be rough grading of the site in order to prepare the area for the first building in the first phase, which is the storage building. Roughly 4,800 square feet in size, pole barn construction. It will have a concrete slab, and it'll consist of 4 bays. 1 bay to be utilized by the village, 2 bays to be utilized by the town, and the 4th bay is actually also to be utilized by the town for the purposes of the harvester that the town has recently, or excuse me, is soon to receive as far as the weed harvester. And so that'll be stored on the site. The intent at this time is the town has received grants from Dutchess County towards the engineering as well as the construction of that storage building. And the deadline as far as utilizing those funds is the end of 2019. So the town is moving actively to try to move forward with the project as a whole. Second phase of the project, which the town actually is seeking additional funding in this calendar year through the same grant process with Dutchess County, is for the construction of a joint sand salt facility. The proposed sand salt facility would be concrete walls built into the side hill, a wood structure along the top as far as its roof line, as well as a lean-to along the southerly edge to allow for additional storage of equipment. The total capacity for the building will be 2,000 tons as far as material to be stored. The building itself, as far as the main storage portion, will be approximately 40 by 80 in size as far as its footprint. Again, concrete walls to contain the sand salt mixture, and the floor will be an asphalt floor as well. The lean-to in size will be 80 feet long, the same length as the building, and approximately 20 to 25 feet in width as far as allowing for materials to be stored underneath it. As part of the construction of that building, there will be a mixing pad. As part of the best management practices and the guidelines set forth by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation for sand salt facilities, they do recommend that an asphalt pad be placed outside of the building so any mixing takes place in that pad, and that area actually be graded back towards the building itself, so any runoff actually heads into the building and therefore it's contained and does not run off site. So that's how that particular area will be constructed. The third future phase would be the construction of the joint highway facility. In total, approximately 14,000 square feet in size. The majority of that would be utilized by the town. There'll be a central administrative area that would be jointly used by both the village as well as the town employees. Separate offices for the village, separate office for administration purposes for the town. But the common areas such as break rooms and bathrooms, things of that nature, would be utilized by both entities. And then in addition to that, there would be a maintenance bay for the village as well along the edge of the building. The proposed construction of the building would include a maintenance bay for the highway department, excuse me, a wash bay as well to wash the equipment inside the facility rather than outside. Currently, very common, unfortunately, for many highway departments to simply go ahead and wash vehicles outside, and then there's runoff that occurs, and it could get into water courses and things of that nature. In this facility, there'll be a separate wash bay with a drain. That drain will go into a oil water separator and then into the storm drainage system as well. So the storm drainage system for this site, so 3.7 acres in size, we will break the 1 acre barrier that therefore requires the entire site be evaluated for a stormwater pollution prevention measure in accordance with the New York State DEC guidelines. So therefore, we are in the process of completing that. We'll be utilizing a combination of infiltration because the soils in the area are very good, sand and gravel materials, being utilized as a infiltration basin, and then a small detention pond located adjacent to the stream. So any of the runoff would first go, or excuse me, runoff from the wash bay would go through the oil water separator prior to heading into the infiltration basin. We are required to capture any runoff from the site prior to entering the stream. So again, any runoff from the paved surfaces or gravel surfaces would be collected. They would be then diverted in through the infiltration basin and then down into the detention area. Some of the areas we're actually trying to implement some green technologies as well, water gardens and things like that, along the northerly edge where we're going to have some additional green space to try to promote green technologies, which is a requirement under the state regulations as well. That document, known as the Notice of Intent, that outlines the stormwater design and measures, is going to be submitted to DEC, and they are required to sign off on that prior to the construction. As part of the initial phase, associated with the storage building, there'll be a fuel storage facility as well. That fuel storage facility will be a joint facility as well, utilized by both the town and the village. Currently, it's anticipated that we'd be looking towards a 3,000 gallon diesel and a 1,500 gallon gasoline storage tank for that purpose. Both tanks are above grade. They'll be double lined, or double walled, excuse me. So that provides for the secondary containment. The filling requirements also provides for spill protection as well. And in accordance with DEC requirements, those tanks need to be reviewed and registered by the DEC prior to being placed into operation. So those do require bulk storage regulations and meeting those requirements, which that information will be submitted to DEC. Water and wastewater. So water and wastewater will not be implemented until the third phase of the project. The bathrooms are only into the new highway garage construction. We do anticipate having an individual well. That individual well, because of the fact of the number of employees jointly between the two, would be considered a non-transient water supply, so we do need to obtain Dutchess County Department of Health approval for that. And also a septic system that'll be located along the front in the green area here, which also will require Dutchess County Department of Health approval. Our office has met with the Department of Health. We've conducted test pits in the area of the proposed septic system as well as percolation tests. That area has been found acceptable to the Department of Health as far as its location. And so at this point, we're just finalizing design for final approval. So that way, when the town is ready to move forward with phase 3, those approvals are in place. All right. I mentioned DOT, DEC, Army Corps, Health Department. So permitting wise, environmentally, those are the items associated with the project as a whole. Again, time frame, construction of phase 1 and the rough grading of the site to occur in 2019. If all goes well, hopefully additional funding from the county as far as the sand salt building. So the construction of phase 2 would potentially occur in 2020, and then perhaps in the third year, the town may begin work on the actual highway garage itself in the third year. As part of the engineering contract that was recently awarded by the town, the design of the storage building, the site in its entirety, along with all the permits that are required, and the sand salt building are all included under that contract. Any questions from the board?
No?
Warren, anything further before opening up to the public hearing?
The only, before we open it up to the public, I just want to go over the criteria that the town board would apply in making its Monroe, what we call the Monroe balancing test determination. It's required to weigh 9 factors. The first would be the nature and scope of the instrumentality seeking immunity. 2, the encroaching government's legislative grant of authority. In this case, there is no encroaching government. You are the government and the host government agency. The kind or function or land use involved, obviously, it's a municipal highway use. The effect local land use regulation would have on the enterprise concerned. The effect, the obvious effect is that it would not be permitted unless you rule that the zoning law is not to be applicable. Alternative locations for the facility in less restrictive zoning areas. We don't have an alternative location under our current zoning law, and I think the search that the town has conducted over the past few years for an appropriate location for the highway garage is well known to the public and to the town board. The impact on legitimate local interest. The town is in dire need of a highway garage. I think that is well demonstrated by the fact that we've received this grant and the work that's gone into this project. The town is in desperate need of a location, for a new location for the highway garage. Alternative methods of providing the proposed improvement. I don't see any alternative methods, but the public could comment on that. The extent of the public interest to be served by the improvement, obvious that the town desperately needs a good location for a highway garage. The intergovernmental participation in the project development process and an opportunity to be heard. Again, there's only one governmental agency involved. If the town board undertakes the project, there will be public sessions in which the public would be invited to weigh in and see what the town board is doing. But those are the 9 factors that you would have to apply in making your determination. I'd like to leave it open to the public so we can get any input or questions while Ray is here. My intent is to take the input that we get from the public, and what I would do is then draft a proposed resolution for the town board to consider enacting as soon as possible, perhaps at a special meeting within a week's time, so that we don't delay the process. If the public also wants to weigh in on the environmental impacts, if there are any, we're happy to hear it, and Ray can answer any questions about that. So that's all I have.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Bill, you had something before?
Yeah, comments, perhaps more than questions.
Yeah.
Requests. So first of all, Bill Kish, I'm a member of the planning board. As a disclaimer, but I'm speaking for myself only, not for the planning board. So first of all, I'm all for the project, and I have no issues whatsoever with the town taking on responsibility for the taking over what will typically be the planning board's responsibilities. However, I would like to say that you have a planning board who has a great deal of expertise in the review of site plans and making suggestions for applications, even such as this, and a lot of experience. And so what I would like to ask is that your resolution includes some affirmative language that states that when the town does take onto itself the responsibility for things that would typically be handled by the planning board, that the town will proactively involve the planning board in each step of the way. And we're particularly, or at least I'm particularly interested, and I think the rest of the planning board would be, in things such as vegetative screening, signage and lighting, and perhaps mitigating other types of impacts that this might have on the neighbors in the neighborhood. We have a lot of experience in doing that, and I think that we've done it in a way that has been not particularly contentious or difficult for the applicant. So basically my ask here is that, you know, typically we would, in the planning board, receive something fairly far along in the planning process where we would receive a request for comments, and our comments would be accepted and received and reviewed, however. But I'm asking for a slightly greater input from the planning board, where the town board would voluntarily submit each new piece of information, each new plan to the planning board, ask for our comments, and then seriously consider them as part of your ongoing work. And I'm wondering whether the board feels that that would be appropriate.
Does the board have any comment on that? I would say that I believe that to the extent possible, we will try to include the planning board on it.
So it's asking for comments, not approvals. Is
Well,
that
you can't-
correct?
Once you've taken.
Well, we are the
Right.
ones
You
that,
can't approve it, yeah.
yeah, we're the finalists.
Right.
Right, but we would like for each of
And
our
I-
comments to be discussed in a town board meeting.
I understand that. The only thing that I would like you to understand is we are under some time constraints here. And we need to move along as rapidly as possible with this so that in the planning board, in looking at this, you know, would keep that in mind and,
I think you'd have to give us very strict instructions as to what our timeline is. And again, I can't speak for the planning board, but myself, I would come in here to look at that at any time, so. And my main point is to make sure that it actually occurs this way, is that you ask that this language be included in your resolution.
Warden, Ray, do you find that is,
I don't know, I mean, I leave that to Ray. The problem is that we are under such intense pressure here. Normally, this would be I mean, it's not a use that's permitted, so if it was a specially permitted use, it would actually be the Zoning Board of Appeals that would make that determination. The Planning Board would have site plan authority. My own personal opinion is that I'm not at all reluctant to having the Planning Board weigh in on this, as long as it doesn't hold up the process. And I don't know, Ray and I could possibly work on some language
Yeah.
to that
Yeah,
effect.
specifically to the items that have been identified as far as visual screening.
and since the towning board is the final approval on this, I mean, you know.
The
we
town
have to
board would
move-
be,
We have to move along with what our schedule is,
Yeah.
but we will certainly try to take that into consideration.
but by the same token, I mean, Ray and I will work on some language that we can put in a resolution, if that's your inclination, with the idea that we would want the input from the planning board is under a very strict, to adhere to our timeline commitments that we have. Does the planning board, can I ask, do they know anything about this project? Is it the first
We haven't discussed it in a planning board meeting. I think that probably a fair number of the planning board members are aware that this project is underway,
Right,
but
right.
we haven't had any.
And when is your next planning board meeting?
Yeah, it's on the calendar, but.
It's on Wednesday, the
Wednesday.
17th.
So this might be a good opportunity for you to take this back to the planning board, see how they feel about the project. I'm going to try to get this a proposed resolution within a week at the most, 10 days, and then maybe if the planning board has some input on that initially, you could get that, you can just email me. I'm fine with that.
Would it be possible for us to have a copy of the sketch such as it is?
Yeah, I can provide an electronic copy if
That would
that's
be great.
okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on the matter? Anything else from, any other comments? Questions?
So, well, that's good. I think Ray and I have enough input on this and enough experience in doing these that he and I can work out language. What's your schedule in terms of a next meeting date? You'd have to do a special meeting.
We would have to do a special meeting next week, would be,
I'm away, again, not that Warren would be able to handle moving the planning board through the process, but I just want to make sure the planning, or my apologies, the town board. I just want to make sure the town board is aware I'm actually away next week. But
you're away all next week?
All next week, correct. I'll be available via email.
Okay.
So again, I can work with Warren towards language and things of that nature, but if there's a meeting, I just will not be here.
I think as long as we have that language and something that we can,
Who gave you permission to go away?
My wife, the only one that knows.
So just so I know, when are you leaving? Not that I want to interfere with you.
Saturday morning.
Saturday morning.
see
Right.
when,
but I will have my laptop with me.
So if I email,
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be checking email.
okay, so I'll take the lead on
Okay.
doing a draft, and I'll get it to you if I can.
Yeah,
That'd be
absolutely.
great, okay. The only other thing is that we do need, it's a type unlisted action under seeker. We determine it's not a type 1 action under environmental review. We have where's the short form? We did a short form.
How about setting the date?
Pardon?
Let's set the date, and then we can,
Well, actually, first item, if there were no additional comments, officially close the public.
Close the hearing.
Right,
Yep.
let's do, I'm sorry, we should do that, but
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
motion made by John Midwood, seconded by John Merwin, all in favor?
Aye.
okay, so,
Next Wednesday, they have a planning board meeting here. Next Thursday, they have a ZBA meeting.
can we shoot towards me getting you something by next Friday? Is that
If
okay?
you're getting it to us next Friday, then it wouldn't be till the following week that
That you could act on it?
have a meeting.
So what would be, what would be your next reasonable date for a special meeting?
Well, when do you, if you're
We can
giving
have
it to
that.
us.
I've already done a draft of the resolution. I mean, Ray and I have been working on this, so it's not gonna be very, I mean, I'm sure I can get something out to
Could we
you.
not do it during next week? Like
I would like to get it done
before
next
the-
week. I'd
before
like to
the planning
move.
board, or before the?
Yeah, I'm not gonna wait for the planning.
No, I'm just
Oh.
saying, if the only reason for not doing it, let's say on Wednesdays, because there's a 7 o'clock meeting, maybe we could have a 6 o'clock meeting, you know?
Sexual harassment training.
Oh, Wednesday is our sexual harassment training. We can't do
We
it.
don't wanna miss that.
Thursday?
We can't miss that.
How about Thursday before the
Well,
ZBA?
I have a meeting.
ZBA meets at 7 o'clock,
7:30.
7:30. Then if we were to meet at,
7?
or, well, 6:30?
What's the earliest that you can get there, John?
What day?
I can get there by 6:30.
Thursday, the
The 18th.
Thursday, the 18th.
You don't have to be in.
Okay, I have
Plains.
I've got clients coming before that I've canceled 3 times already. I can, I have a Pine Plains Town Board meeting Thursday. So, I'm thinking that, could we do a special meeting at 6, did we think?
That's
I don't have a problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody else?
I could take an hour of work off, probably, and get it
Okay.
done.
Okay.
So,
6 PM. Is that all right?
Go
6 PM?
A
And if
motion
you,
to
could you get your comments as soon as possible to me? Okay.
April 18th at
I'll have
6.
the sketch sent out to the planning board secretary tomorrow, so that
Can you
will
just-
still have that.
We need a motion.
To set the special meeting.
Can I have a motion to
Yeah.
have a special meeting on April 18th at 6 o'clock?
All right.
Made by John Merwin, seconded by Chris Kennan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
But it's gotta be, I have to be back in Pine Plains by 7.
As long as everything is in order, we'll be done in 15 minutes.
Okay, it shouldn't be a problem. The other thing I'd like to do is just go over the part 2, the impact assessment for this project. And we've taken the liberty, if it's okay with the town board, Ray and I have gone over the part 2, and we've answered each question with a small to no impact, but I just want to get your approval of that. So first of all, will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted last land use plan or zoning regulations? In essence, it would, only because we don't have a provision in our town law for the location of the highway garage, but we consider that to be a small or less than small impact, if that's acceptable to the town board. Will the proposed action result in the change in the use or intensity of the land, use of the land? Obviously it would, it's vacant land now, but the use is, we feel, consistent with the location of the property, the size of the property, and the property could, except for the setback requirements, well accommodate this facility? 3, will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? We don't feel it would. We think it's quite an appropriate place for the location of a highway garage on Route 22. 4, will the proposed action have an impact on critical environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? No, it would not. Will the proposed action result in adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? It wouldn't. It will increase the traffic on Route 22, but not to a level that can't be accommodated by that highway.
And also by reducing the traffic in the village.
Pardon?
By reducing the traffic in the village and eventually on 22.
It will have a beneficial
beneficial
effect. Yes,
So
that's a
it
good
nets
point.
out.
We'll note that. 6, will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? We said no, or small impact. I think we're going to be incorporating green building design to the extent feasible for this project. And obviously, we'd be following all appropriate building designs for a highway garage of this nature. 7, will the proposed action impact existing public or private water supplies? No. Public or private wastewater? No. 8, will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? We don't know of any on the site that, nor do we think that any of those would be impacted. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora and fauna? There will be some issues with regard to the stream and wetlands, but all the requirements of DEC and the health department will be observed in this project.
Also, I'm sorry, if I may just add, again, similarly, ultimately, we're looking at the entire project as a whole, okay, not just phase 1.
Right, we're not
looking at all 3 phases, so ultimately, moving the entire facility from its existing location within the village to this new location, again, similar to the traffic, I believe is a positive because we're getting that highway facility away from the trout stream and where that sand salt is currently being stored under a tarp in the middle of that parking area. Again, although there are some things that are taking place on our site as far as relocating the stream, ultimately it is a benefit as far as moving the location and constructing a new joint highway facility at this location.
And we're also moving the village highway entity away from the wellhead of the village water supply.
I'm just making some notes. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No, there will be a SWIP that will be all analyzed and taken care of by a stormwater pollution prevention plan. And will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources, human health? Quite the opposite. It will have a benefit effect. So if you all agree with that, I can put together a very short resolution adopting what we call a negative seeker declaration, which finds that the entire project will not have the potential for any significant environmental impacts, and the draft environmental impact statement need not be prepared. Okay. And again, you're not bound to it until you vote on it, so if anybody has anything they want to send me in the meantime, let me know. I think we're all set on that. So I think I have enough to get you the resolutions by next week.
I would just like to say that from my standpoint, having looked at the plans and having listened to the plans that Ray has proposed, the environmental impact of this is a plus in terms of removing this existing highway garage from the stream bed, from the, not the bed, but the banks of the Weebattuck, including our sand salt storage, which is just amazing that it is still there, and putting it into a much better location.
I'm not sure how long that situation could exist, so this is coming in the nick of time for the town and the village.
Certainly, if we tried to do that today, it would never be allowed.
That the proposed location of this highway garage not being essentially in a residential neighborhood is also
And not being in the floodplain.
And not being in
Yeah.
a floodplain.
And the cost at which the town picked up the land for,
Yes.
it's a plus.
That was a great
Thank you.
coup by our town board. So I think I have enough. I'll get this to you. If you have anything to add to it when we vote on it, just let me know. If you have any comments you think of in the meantime. I think the fact that there haven't been any negative impacts identified by the public is reason enough to move forward with the negative secret determination.
I agree.
Okay, next we have a presentation by Karen Rue. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you.
From the Dutchess Land Conservancy regarding a request for a letter of endorsement concerning the purchase of development rights for the Prody Homestead Farm.
Thank you. So in recent years, the Dutchess Land, I'm Karen Rue, the Dutchess Land Conservancy. I'm the Director of Land Projects, and I do want to say thank you very much for giving us some time here on your agenda. In recent years, I've been before the town board asking for endorsement for a similar program to apply to the Department of Agriculture and Markets Farmland Protection Implementation Grants Program, referred to as FPIG, for financial assistance in purchasing development rights on farmland. Whenever we do apply to the state for these funds, the state does require that as part of a qualifying application that we have endorsement from the local municipality. This is a new program that I'm actually here asking for endorsement for. Typically what the FPIG program does is provide funds for a perpetual permanent conservation easement which extinguishes development rights or drastically reduces them on open farmland. This new program is actually a sort of intermediary step, and it is called the Option Agreement Project program, which is that whereas the state is now opening their FPIG perpetual easement funding program every other year, so they opened it in 2018, they next anticipate opening it in 2020. They envision the Option Agreement program being a step for the intermediary years to sort of line us up for our next application for 2020. So what that means is that the DLC is applying for funds for a small payment to the landowner, which would obligate them into an agreement for a 3-year restriction on the property, whereby they continue to farm the property as is, as they have been doing so. They will not develop or sell the property. If any of that changes, they then have to pay back the option payment that they received. And so within that 3-year time frame, we will ideally go through the state's full PDR program and close on a conservation easement within those 3 years, and thereby perpetually protecting the property. And so we're here to ask for endorsement for our application to the state's Option Agreement program. There's no timeline on this Option Agreement program. It is a rolling program. It's basically that the state made, I think it was $5 million available statewide And they're basically just paying out projects until they run out of funds. And so it could go on for a few years. We're hopeful to get our application in within the next month, and then be able to begin work on the application that would be due next year. And so in order to be a qualifying application, in addition to the town endorsement, there are regional criteria. It does have quite high qualifications to get in. The property has to be at least 120 acres in size. The Perotti Homestead Farm is actually 348 acres in size. We are only submitting an application for the agricultural component of that property, which comes out to about 271 acres. So our project area would be 271 acres. The property does have to, at least 67% of the property has to be engaged in active agriculture. Of that 271 acres, 68% is engaged in active agriculture. And of the project area, at least 21% of it has to have prime farmland soils. And of our 271 acres that we're proposing, they have 23% of prime farmland soils. And so we believe that it fits with the regional criteria. This is just for the state actually breaks, Agri-Markets breaks the state down into 5 different regions, and the Hudson Valley region is the criteria I just explained. It fits those. The proposed land plan, we believe, also will fit with the state's guidelines, which is that of the 271 acres, the landowners would retain the right to be able to sell it as 2 separate farms. So, approximately 135 acres per farm, which is a very manageable size. You can have a good farm on 135 acres. And so that we believe in the location of the farmland, the farmstead areas, which I provided in a map that we sent in a couple weeks ago, would fit with the state's guidelines on land planning. And so the Perotti family, brothers John, Frank, Charles, James, and thank you, Robert. Sorry, Bobby. Are all have made very clear their intent to follow through with this 3-year option and submit an application to the state, and have made very clear their intent to abide by all of that. And then ultimately too, this does fit with the town priorities as outlined in the Farmland and Protection Plan that the town has, the Town of Northeast Agriculture and Farmland Protection Plan, as well as the Comprehensive Plan, which both identify the goal to preserve farmland as a means to ensuring continuation and diversification of agricultural activities via the use of conservation easement. So we do ask for endorsement. John Perotti is here. I'd like to make just a few minutes of a statement as to why this is important to his family to go forward with this option agreement and then ultimately perpetual conservation of the farm.
Okay, thank you, Carm. Supervisor Kay, town board members, friends. We're hoping that you look at this positively. My grandfather came here through Ellis Island in 1890, purchased this farm in 1913. We've been farming it for 105 years, and the 4th generation has been farming it. And we think that this is a possibility of conserving the land for a future generation, if the interest is there for them to farm, or gives options for the land to continue to be kept in agriculture in perpetuity. And I think from my personal opinion, that the state, the county, and the town has, over the years, since I've been involved with a lot of these projects myself, has done a pretty good job of conserving the land through the state ag districts law, and the county adopting that law, the town with 5-acre zoning, and now the Land Conservancy with the development rights and these kind of options. The only thing that in my opinion, that we haven't done too well at, is preserving the farmers to take care of these properties. And part of what I see in the future that may need to be looked at is careful about regulation and careful about the tax situation as it pertains to agriculture. And the most important is that those people actively involved in agriculture have to get paid a fair price for the product they're producing, no matter which product it is. And then our government, in my opinion, has not done a great job in seeing that the fair share comes the farmer's way. So buying local and some of the things that are happening here are a good start. So we ask that you look at this positively, and our plan is to try to keep this homestead farm and agriculture as long as possible. And this will help us in our family planning as well. Thank you. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Yes, I too would be very happy to answer any questions.
Does the board have any questions?
No, I think this is a good idea to help them out.
I don't think anybody here disagrees with this. I do have one general question. A great deal of land seems to be going into various different types of conservancies, everything else. What happens in the future should at some point we decide that maybe that land, instead of, use for this, might be better used for something else? Is there any way of reversing any of these?
So to be clear, conservation easement via the program that we're pursuing does not require that the property be farmed. It makes it most conducive to farming. It does prohibit most commercial use of the farm. It prohibits industrial use of the farm. These are, when we go through this process with lands that we're trying to work to conserve, we're really working with landowners on properties that we believe wholeheartedly in, and in ways that can be, for which there's a lot of evidence, are most conducive to agriculture. And so we're not necessarily pursuing properties that would be, best used for commercial use or for, high density development and that sort of thing, close to within the village confines, etc. So I just want to make clear that other uses are also available on the property through the conservation easement. They can have what are referred to as rural enterprises, which are businesses that will help support the farm that are non-agricultural but don't interfere with agricultural use of the property, such as a bed and breakfast or private home offices, that sort of thing. But I guess to get at the crux of your question is that there's really no way to completely reverse the conservation easement, the sale of the development rights, other than through eminent domain, through the federal government or the state government. The environmental conservation law makes that clear, that the state and federal government, need for the property does trump the environmental component of it. Yeah, does that answer your question? What other uses?
Pretty much, I think so, yeah. Any other questions? Can I have a motion to endorse, for the supervisor to issue a letter endorsing this project?
So
Made by John Merwin, seconded by Chris Kennan. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very, very much.
thank you.
Do you have a sample letter that normally?
I would be
Would be
very
yours.
happy to send one over tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll email one, and then you can
I'm
edit
sure you
it.
have a rather standard form for this type of thing. So.
There are certainly things that we know that the state likes to see in the letter. That we can provide for you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, I really
Thank
do
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you.
Have a good evening.
We'll see you, John.
Yeah.
Next is, I have on here a discussion of resolution to join New York class. We brought this up at the last meeting, and we wanted to look into the possibility of taking those funds that are currently in Salisbury Bank that are not earning as high an interest rate as some of our funds. To be able to earn the highest interest rate in the past, it's required over $1 million. Each account has to, any account to earn the highest interest rate has to have a minimum of $1 million within that account. I went to the bank before the last meeting and asked them if there was any way in which they could change that policy and allow for the highest interest rate on our other accounts as well. We currently have 7 that are in money market funds. I didn't get a reply. I called day before yesterday again to see what they said, and I received a reply this afternoon. And they will give us their highest interest rate on all accounts, which is 2.25%, APR 2.27.
Very good.
I suggest that since we oftentimes borrow money and tend to get much better rates, or have at times gotten much better rates with Salisbury Bank, I believe due to the fact that we do have funds that are currently there in these accounts, that there is not a great difference between that and New York class. And that these funds in the bank are FDIC guaranteed, and that for that reason, I think it is actually better for us to stay with Salisbury Bank.
Absolutely.
Do we have any discussion on that?
No, I think it's
Very good.
Keep it local.
Yes?
Yep.
Okay, then I guess we've taken care of that. Next is the reappointment of Dave Schufelt to the Ethics Committee. He is the 5th member, and he wasn't able to get here and sign his oath of office quite in time, so we have to reappoint him to the Ethics Committee. Can I have a motion to do that?
So moved.
Made by Ralph Fidelli, seconded by John Merwin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have a request from the county executive, Mark Molinaro, to name a Lisa, could you just read this letter? It's from the county executive, and it's asking for a town board member to be named as a veteran liaison.
Do you want me to read this then?
If you could read that,
Okay.
please.
Dear Town Supervisor, I'm writing you regarding a request for your town board to consider creating a Veterans Liaison position, which could be assigned to a sitting board member. The Veterans Liaison Board position is created to enhance the town's current programs and services that honor the men and women in our communities who have served or who are currently serving in the U.S. Armed Forces. The purpose of the position is to have a representative from your town's community to serve as an advisory and participant role on matters pertaining to Veterans Affairs. The aim for this request is that each township in Dutchess County will have a veterans liaison to better communicate any local veterans' needs and/or ceremony or event coordination in partnership with the Dutchess County Division of Veteran Services. The veterans liaison position will be best served by a board member to maintain participatory accountability. The veterans liaison position should be assigned to a town board member with interest and dedication to the well-being of our local veterans, regardless of his or her own veteran status. I wholeheartedly appreciate your consideration and look forward to your reply. Respectfully, Mark A. Cabilio, Director, Division of Veteran Services.
Anybody interested in being the Veterans Liaison?
Well, what about yourself?
That's what I was afraid you were going to say. Being the only veteran here. I guess I take on another role. Okay.
You want a motion on that?
We'll just, I will accept that
Okay.
There we go.
responsibility.
With our thanks.
Next is the supervisor's report. We have bills and abstracts. There are no budget adjustments this month.
We did that. That was part of the original. Yeah, there's only one agency.
Make sure we get that.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's in the,
Yeah, let me just run through that first.
Yeah.
Yes, I forgot about 5G. Warren has drawn up a resolution covering us on 5G here. Hopefully. It is not the final version of what we need to completely cover us in that regard.
no, it's still an uncertain area. I actually contacted the person who wrote the article that has stemmed all this concern about the 5G Federal Communications Order. And these are this new technology for wireless facilities, which will result in potentially lower but more towers, and could create a visual impact that some of the communities are concerned about. The FCC has pretty much preempted the field of regulation of communications tower, and they've done so for 5G, from what we can tell. But they did leave a door open for municipalities to pass some regulations regarding the aesthetics of these facilities. I could not find any local law that's been passed by any municipality that deals directly with the 5G towers. We already have a communications, wireless communication local law in place. So what I've done on the advice of the Association of Towns is just create a resolution preserving our right to, at some future point, amend our zoning regulations to provide for some kind of aesthetic control of these to the extent that we're permitted by law. And this might be, we don't know for sure, how valid or enforceable it is, but it's the best we can do under the circumstances. Because the creation of a local law to try to comply with these regulations is going to be a very complex process, and it would take, several months of local law development and public hearings. So the resolution is the best I could do under the circumstances. If you can pass it tonight, we think that it might be sufficient to preserve our rights because we have a deadline of April 15th to enact these regulations, and then we'll see what happens. It might be something that the committee that's dealing with our comprehensive plan can take a look at and amend our telecommunications regulations existing to provide for some aesthetic control to the extent that we're able for these facilities. I'm told it's nothing that's going to happen in the next 2 years, and there's still a great element of uncertainty about this because there's some federal litigation pending which may result in a further order, but this is the best we can do on the short-term basis.
I thought it was not just aesthetics. I thought it was also that the town would be able to collect.
Oh, and it would have to do with additional fees, but they're putting, some limitations on the collection.
On how much you could,
Yeah. So I think we have time, because it doesn't look like this is something that's going to be come knocking on our door.
I
But
also thought that the town of Skoda was working on a law and was pretty well along with it. from what
well,
I-
I can find out about that. I wasn't aware the county was, but where did you?
Not sure where I,
Yeah, let's pass the resolution tonight to preserve our rights.
okay.
And then I'll check in to see whether the county's doing something that might be covering the county on a townwide basis. But if you've ever dealt with,
Skodak wouldn't be Dutchess County anyways.
Yes.
pardon?
Skodak wouldn't be Dutchess County.
Skodak would be up
I
near
think
Albany.
Rensselaer
right,
County.
Rensselaer County.
Yeah.
I collected a number of other local laws, but most of them are enacted prior. They're not any different from our telecommunications law. They were enacted prior to this new order. So this, I think, will keep us in a holding pattern, and then we'll look into it. If we start getting applications for this, then we can move things along more quickly if we have to do that.
Do we need to read the resolution, I guess?
Not as far as I'm concerned.
Can I have a motion to?
Can I make a comment about it?
Sure.
Yeah, just, I have read the resolution, and I do think that there are concerns about the 5G technology. Not only the visual ones, but potentially health effects of 5G, which seem to be not completely determined at this point. But, so I do understand that the federal government has essentially reserved a lot of rights in terms of the placement of these things. So anything that we can do, if it's a small window, I think it's worth doing. Ordinarily, I would have said we should, invite, comment on this resolution, given the timetable. I think
Yeah, I just want to get it in place so we preserve whatever rights.
I think it tries to put our foot in the door as much as you can.
But it's not going to be, I've dealt with these applications before, and the federal government really has preempted the field here. And if you try to stop, we had one it was in the town of Northeast, on the, what's the mountain outside of?
Silver Mountain.
Silver Mountain.
Yeah.
This was,
That was a long time ago.
That was not 5G.
that was not 5G, but
That was just for a cell tower.
that was
yeah.
a cell tower, and the town had fought that, and we found ourselves in federal court in front of a very tough judge, and we were warned that we better resolve this case quickly before the judge had a field day with us. So we did, and it's turned out to be a non-issue. I don't know that there's been any problem, but this could be a more significant issue. So I'll keep my eyes on this for you.
So we need to make a motion.
Have a motion to pass the resolution on 5G towers, cell towers. Can I? Made by Chris Kennan, seconded by
Second.
John Midwood. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Do you have anything else for me?
I don't think there's anything
Okay,
else.
I'm going to take off.
Yep. Thank you. Okay, we have a special abstract dated March 26, 2019, totaling $285.59, broken down as follows.
I just needed to see.
$285.59. Can I have a motion to accept the special abstract?
So moved.
Made by Ralph Fidelli, seconded by
I'll second.
Good night.
John Merwin. All in favor?
Aye.
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 It's a new email.
have an abstract dated April 11th, 2019, totaling $219,950.53, broken down as follows. A fund, $166,102.58. B fund, $3,481.09. DB fund, $42,992.74. Escrow, $7,374.12. Can I have a motion to accept the abstract? Made by John Merwin, seconded by
Second.
Ralph Fidelli. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have Pardon me?
Voucher committee?
Voucher Committee for May. And that is Ralph Fidelli
Who's jumping through the doors?
and John Midwood.
Yep.
And next we have the minutes from past two meetings here.
One was March 12th. March 14th.
Yeah, I know, I came from, I got March 14th. Oh, here I've got it. First of all is a town workshop meeting of March 12th. Anybody have any comments, corrections? I've got a couple minor ones here.
There's a typo.
Yes.
Small things,
Yeah.
minor.
Few things. With those amendments, can I have a motion to accept the March 12th meeting minutes? Made by Ralph Fidelli, seconded by Chris Kennan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next is the March 14th meeting. Are there any comments on the March 14th meeting?
It was
There's a typo.
Once again, there are a couple
Yeah.
of,
In the middle, there's a couple of spelling things. Just two.
Yeah, I see that.
yeah, I've got a couple of things. With those amendments to the minutes, can I have a motion to pass the March 14th minutes?
So moved.
Made by
Second.
John Midwood, seconded by Ralph Fidelli. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next is general comments. Do we have any comments by anyone would like to make? Yes, Bill.
This is concerning the sexual harassment training. How long is that training, how long does the actual training class last?
Well, it's a little difficult to tell because we're still waiting for the film to come in. However, from what we heard before, the film for all members who are required to go to it is about 20 minutes. Isn't that what they do?
Half hour.
Half hour. And then for department heads, there's an additional 20 minutes to half hour.
That was the first question. The second one is there any provision for people who are not going to be?
We're going to have to, in some way, allow for that, because I understand that there are people who it's just impossible for them to make. Go
We have a
ahead.
link that they provided us, an online training course that we can provide to anybody that can't attend.
Okay, that's good. And let's see, what's the next one is more of an editorial comment. That letter, I think, hit a lot of people as kind of a, I don't know how to characterize it, but it was very authoritative, mandatory harassment training. You will show up. I understand for town employees, that might be an appropriate tone, but I think that for the other committee members and volunteer board members, it might have been more appropriate to send a notice saying, hey, we're required to give this training, you need to show up.
It was not meant to sound that way. I'm sorry that it came across
I understand
that way.
But, yeah, speaking with people, it was taken that way, so I just wanted to give you.
Okay, I appreciate that.
All right, thank you.
If that's it, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Made by John Maywood, seconded by, God, usually I don't have to draw this one out, by Chris Kennett. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.